Hi, everyone. Welcome. Time is flying, and it's now the 4th class of our regional course. There's only one more class to go. So up till now, the classes have loosely been following the Lamrim small and medium scopes. In the first class, if you recall, we covered the importance of the Lamrim because after all, if we want to get to enlightenment, to attain the highest state of evolution, it is not somewhere we've been before, right? It's not buying a train ticket to Penang or wherever. So because it is somewhere so special and so unique, it's not going to come to us simply by wishing for it or simply by accident. We're going to need to follow a certain set of steps, very systematic set of steps. Thus the importance of the Lamrim, graduated path to enlightenment. And at the same time, because it is not somewhere we've been, we need to have the guide of a qualified teacher, therefore the importance of a guru.
Hello?
And then you might think, well, wait a minute, life is busy, we've got work, we've got families, we've got jobs, we've got holidays. Actually, there is no time left. And so in the second class, we went through how important the optimum human rebirth is, that what we have is so much more precious than all the worlds of wish-fulfilling jewels, where with the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments, actually we have the means right now in this life to achieve our very end goal of enlightenment. And yet, time is ticking. From the moment we were conceived, the seconds are already ticking away towards our death. Death can happen at any time, and therefore we cannot procrastinate. And that brought us to the third class, where Nahoko then presented about the 3 parts, the small, medium, and great scopes, and also the importance of renunciation to this life, to the future lives, in order to attain the state of liberation. Easier said than done, of course, right? I mean, if you will recall, if you were at the last class, Nahoko was sharing about her difficulties in renouncing certain items when she embarked on her great pilgrimage so many years ago. So anyway, this brings us to today. And our topic today is mind training, because we can attend all the teachings in the world, we can read all the books in the world about the Dharma, but until we internalize it, until it can affect our minds, then it remains very much an abstract concept, really. So mind training is about how we utilize the jewel of the Dharma to affect our minds in a way which subdues the delusions and brings about the happiness that we seek. Our presenter today is Jaya, who is based in Malaysia. And Jaya has been Center Director of Losang Dragpa Center. He's been Spiritual Program Coordinator of Rinchen Jangsem Ling. He's also a CEO, entrepreneur, and a professional director of companies which are based in Malaysia, Singapore, and India. So you can be sure that Jaya has got many experiences to share about how mind training has actually benefited him. So Jaya, over to you. Tell us more.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Can you all see me? Yeah, all good? Yes. So, thank you, Selena. When Selena asked me to speak about mind training, I was quite excited because I think I've had a lot of experiments with my mind from a very young age. and I would love to share it with you, with people. I normally try to share it during dinner time at home, but I normally get shut up and people tell me stop talking about Dharma, stop talking about this. So given a chance to talk to the public in general, I said, wow, I said, why not? So so let me first introduce myself. I mean, I'll be 67 this year. I met Dharma really maybe 20 years ago, 25, 23, 24 years ago. But my journey into trying to find out what is meaningful, I think started at a very young age when I was in school. And I used to have a very lively discussion with my friends. I went to a Catholic school. I come from a very Hindu family. My parents were very devout um, Hindus, and no matter how big a house, how small a house, which of course I lived in very small houses when I was growing up, was always the pride of my father and my mother. Always the altar, huge altar we had with all the Hindu deities and everything else. So I grew up with that kind of background, doing a lot of Hindu prayers in my early age. When I went to a Catholic school, I was introduced to Catholicism, and I found, wow, something's different. Then I started wondering, my basic questions in my early age were always, what's the purpose of life? And what's the nature? What's the true reality? What is real? And I somehow never found those answers, when I was trying to, seek them in Hinduism or Christianity, which are two religions I had a lot of familiarity with. So I plodded along. I read a lot of books. I used to do a lot of reading of philosophers like Bertrand Russell, and Losang Rampa was my first introduction to Buddhism. Um, and so I just kept plodding along and trying to find out what made sense. And somehow nothing really, ticked all my boxes. So in 1999, I just had moved into a new house, which I built in KL, and I was still having really a lot of questions. So I approached my brother-in-law, who was, I would say, at that time, a closet Buddhist, and I said, look, I really want to find out something more. Do you think I can? And I know he had a teacher in Singapore, called at the time Lama Felix. So I said, look, can I meet Lama Felix? And he said, yeah, come by. And I flew to Singapore on my way. I think I was going to fly to Hong Kong on a business trip, and I flew to Singapore to see Lama Felix, and I think that started my journey, really. So kind of, a very long story. I mean, I got so many subplots, sub stories, but I'll just go straight. And Lama Felix then sent me to Kopan. And I remember I'm going to Kopan in April of, I think, 2000, I think. And it was monsoon season. And it was landing in Kopan, Kathmandu airport, and traveling this small taxi. I was going to Kopan. It was monsoon season. It's literally pools of water. It was like a car was going through lakes all over the road. And when I reached Kopan, I said, "Wow, this is nice. This is like deja vu. And I've been there all the time, all my life." Again, kind of long story short, I met Lama Lundrup, and Lama Lundrup was my, I think, first teacher I met, and he was so kind. I mean, every evening he will call for me and to go to his room, and he will ask me, I know you have a lot of questions. Ask me everything you want to know. And I think I spent 6 or 7 days with Lama Lundrup in the evenings, asking him questions after questions after questions. And I came back, a lot of questions were answered. So I came back and I said to my mother, I said, hey, I think I want to be a part Hindu and a part Buddhist. So I set up 2 altars in my house, and I did my Buddhist prayers, I did my Hindu prayers, and I had the good fortune to be invited by Lama Felix when he had an audience with His Holiness, and he was kind enough to let me tag along. So I came along, and it was just a small group of 12 of us who went to see His Holiness in Dharamsala in 2001. And when I met His Holiness, when we were going to see His Holiness, we were told very strictly what we should do, what we should not do. For example, it's, at the time I was not a Buddhist. I'm not really a Buddhist. Who His Holiness really was. So I was told my meeting, for me, like somebody like a Pope of Catholicism, right? And we were told very strictly you're supposed to sit on the floor, not look at him in the face, and procedure when he walks in, must go to prostrations and everything else. And I remember walking into the room where he's supposed to meet His Holiness, and of all people, His Holiness opens the door for us to come in. And we were like stunned, didn't know what to do. We were carrying offerings and we all tried to prostrate. And he said, no prostration, his commanding was, no prostration, no prostration. And then we were all trying to sit on the floor, and he said, no, sit on the chair, sit on the chair, And then we all trying not to look at him, and he asked us, are you something wrong with my floor? What are you looking at? Look at me, talk to me. So I was the first daring person, and I asked him, I said, Your Holiness, you always say Buddhism and Hinduism are sister religions. So is it okay to practice both? And he looked at me, I think, like a kid, and he said, oh, it's good. Hinduism and Buddhism, both good, very good to practice both. But he said, but the thing is, he said, all religions tell you the same things, like in a junior school, kindergarten, you basically hear the same things, and they're all good. But if you want to progress, you want to make real progress, then you find that somehow as you progress more and more, one will lead in one direction, and another one will go another direction. So it's good for you to focus on one and not two. And Buddhism, Hinduism is on Atman, Christianity is on the soul, but Buddhism is all about mind. So he said you may need to focus if you want to progress. But he said then again, you don't have to be a Buddhist to actually be a practitioner of Buddhism. Because he says the Buddhism is all about mind, all about training a mind. So you can be a Hindu, you can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, and you don't have to really change your religion to follow the wisdom. And I thought that was, wow, really mind-blowing. I thought this is, all my life been debating with my friends in school about which is the superior religion, which has got more to offer. And this is this person, telling me that I don't have to change my religion to follow a wisdom, to follow, to be happy, So I came back and told my mother, I said, hey, Mother, Mom, I have found what I was looking for. I want to become a Buddhist. She said, are you sure you're going to do the right thing? Anyway, so I did. So I put away my deities. I sent my deities back to some temples, Hindu deities to some temples, and gave some of them back to my mother, who had given to me at the beginning. So then that started my journey, and I've never looked back, and I have been enriched, and I've been, every time I wake up, sometimes when I did Dharma, I need to, my hand stands on edge. I said, wow, this is something really amazing, something worth sharing. And so here I am. I'm not a qualified teacher. I can't teach. I can share, which is what I'm going to try to do today. And in so doing, I hope you have my understanding. I hope you have the understanding that this is a very novice Buddhist who's trying to share what I know, little I know, with all of you, and you will hold that in mind when you listen to me. Okay, next slide. So, in all things about Buddhism, when we start, it's always about motivation. So, the central theme of Buddhism has been and always will be compassion. And in order to achieve whatever we want to achieve, we achieve it for others. And this is the motivation of my sharing today. And if you want to read with me, you can, or you can just read the lines. In order to benefit numberless sentient beings without exception, I must achieve the perfectly awakened state of complete enlightenment. So this is the motivation of talk today. And we then take refuge. So if you are a Buddhist, you can take refuge. If you're not a Buddhist, you can just stay silent. We can read it one time. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Practice of giving in other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. The next prayer is a prayer of the four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness as causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering as causes of suffering. May all sentient beings May all beings never be separated from happiness, as free from suffering. May all beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and anger, and all those, some close and others distant. So now that we have come, so one of the first questions I had all the time was, what's the purpose of life? And I never got the answer in my previous whatever experiments or searches I was doing. But until I came to something, what His Holiness said at that first meeting I had with him, and subsequently in all his teachings, which is the purpose of life is to be happy. Really, whatever we do, whether we want to serve others or we want to, have a life eating chocolate cake every day, or to live in a big house, or drive a great car, or go to go on a holiday, or whatever we do, is really revolves around being happy or trying to be happy. And even in every sentient being, every being with sense of mind, always has this motivation, whether it realizes it or not. This is the purpose of all our lives and lives of all sentient beings. But how do we experience happiness? How do we experience happiness and unhappiness? And happiness and unhappiness are manifestations of the mind. This is what we learned. This is what is true, because they are all mental states. The experiences that happiness and unhappiness is the mind or the mental consciousness. Everything else, your house, your car, your job, your partner, are all the external conditions. They're all just conditions. The central substantial cause of happiness is your mind. But how do we experience happiness or unhappiness? The mental states. So being for my discovering background of trying to find out really how things make sense, there was I came across this positive psychologist's view of how happiness arises. Psychology basically always has had a negative perception that psychology is always used to treat mentally ill people or treat people who have mental problems. And this is why I think in the 1990s, Sonja Bronsky and I think a couple other people set up positive psychology of how people can actually train to find happiness. And they came out with this happiness formula, which is, I just put it up there, which is happiness consists of a set point of one's life, conditions of life, and voluntary activities. An interesting point is that happiness that people cultivate, people enjoy from, the majority, 80% of it comes from voluntary activities, which is the ability to reframe our situations positively and express gratitude and a choice to be kind, generous. And interesting, this is what was the psychology's view or science view of how happiness arises. Then we come to the Buddhist view, and the Buddhist view, I quote from Arya Nagarjuna that it's so urgent to give up the cause of cyclic existence, which is the first paragraph, that even if your hates and clothes catch fire, rather than putting it out, simply make effort, destroy the causes of destroy the causes of birth. There's no better purpose than that. And this is the voluntary part. True pure ethics, wisdom, concentration, attain nirvana, the pure immaculate tame state, which is, happiness that's now was just happiness of the chocolate cake. But here is something which is ageless, deathless, limitless, free of earth, fire, water, wind, and sun and moon. Wow, this is the Buddhist view of happiness. You can accept, you can be happy. Unimaginable happiness can accrue from that. So in both views of happiness, the common denominator is that, that we can positively reframe ourselves, reframe our life positively to achieve happiness in Buddhist perspective. And happiness, and His Holiness himself says, happiness is not a fixed characteristic, a biological set point, which will never change. So it's, plasticity of the mind, and quote of happiness can be enhanced through mental training. And Arya Santideva, who's a very central saint to the Buddhist thought, came out and said, there's nothing whatsoever that's done to make easier through acquaintance. And the mind, which has many faults, has one great quality, why is that? Whichever way you train it, it comes. This is Geshe Chikawa who wrote this 7-point mind training. So happiness is a causative phenomenon. It is not something which is it's a fixed, something which is dependent. If it's dependent on causes and conditions, it always can be trained. And unlike physical activity, like something you do physically, which you need to make effort to do, mind training, when your mind is trained, it happens almost effortlessly. It's like habit. When you create habits and you do habits kind of unthinkingly, so to speak, but it is what it is. Happiness is that. But so everything. So if you look at what the Buddha thought, everything the Buddha thought is happiness, is mind training. So what is known as in Buddhist terms as lojong. And what is lojong? So lo in the Tibetan means mind, and jong means training. And if you look at all the classic Buddhist texts on lojong, it is always about the mind training being a lojong, being to acquire new skills of thinking, new cultivation of new habits, new skills, habituating your mind, thinking in a particular way, cultivating virtuous habits, and purifying the mind of negativities. And particularly lojong was the defining philosophy of the Kadampa school led by Atisha in the 11th century. And lojong was actually the basis on which Lama Atisha wrote Lamb on the Path, upon which Lama Tsongkhapa wrote Lam Rinchen, Middle Length Lam Rim, and various other texts. I say this because this series was meant to be a lead up to the Rinpoche's, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's retreat on the Lamb on the Path. So the purpose of lojong is to utilize whatever experiences you have, whether it's obstacles or enemies or good things, to actually enjoy them, because they actually lead to lead to happiness. But how they lead to happiness, well, it may sound quite difficult to do, but if you follow me for a while, I will later on explain to you. But the real thing which destroys our happiness is basically our grasping. I mean, our ego, our I, our clinging to the I, so to speak. And I will now play for you a video of Rinpoche explaining what this I does, and in the next video. Can you play?
Asked, what is the quickest way to have success in the realization of Lamrim? And so the other thing that I asked that, he said, practicing remedy to the self-satisfying thought. That's exactly. So that in the prayer, that yes, practicing remedy to the self-satisfying thought. So that is, whatever problem comes, whatever difficulty comes, whatever problem comes in the life, immediately, without delay, immediately point out the self-satisfying thought. Somebody complains, somebody angry, or whatever sickness, whatever happens, even death, whatever happens, immediately blame to your self-satisfying thought. So the time, the length the cigarette, the guna garden chow from seeing the 7 points of thought transformation by Kadama Geshe Chekawa. So there is the length the cigarette. So all the mistakes, all the problems, all the shortcomings, all blame to one. So that's your self-satisfying thought. So that's you. So then, towards others, then meditate on kindness. In the, including the animals, insects, including the animals, even insects, harm. If you harm, they harm. If you harm, they harm back. Whatever they can. Biting, whatever they can. You see, whatever. Then of course, generally human being, ordinary human being in the world, even somebody didn't harm you, but you harm back. Even somebody didn't harm, you harm back. So you harm the others like that. So somehow then you harm back which is outside to the others. Harm back. So that's what they do. So total opposite. So then you harm back. You don't know. You harm to them. Whether they harm you or not, you harm them. That becomes a cause to receive harm later, even right way, or later, or next lives. You see? Then you don't know that. Kill everybody, kill. Anybody want to kill like him? I don't know. I heard the Hitler, because I wonder eyes, what? Eyes, eyes something, one color. Blue, he wanted to blue eyes or something. And then blonde hairs. Blonde hairs, he wanted blonde hairs. Something like that, eyes. Something like that, yeah, I heard. So otherwise he don't like, kill, I don't like. So anyway, what to say? That's true words. Great practice. Wow. Great practice in the life. Only two words. Put all the blame to one. Towards others, kindness. That. Practice Buddhism. That's what can come out of things. That. Practice immediate self-chasing thought. He's too cool realization. That's very rich. So the so all the others, as I said, from beginningless birth, the happiness came from them, the kindness and the present and future, including enlightenment, all the liberation, some happiness, every single relation, goodness, every single happiness comes from them. From every sentiment. Wow, most amazing. Yeah. These two words, unbelievable practice, most unbelievable practice. So this is the reality. So you blend the self-chasing thought, inner enemy, your great demon, and then eliminate, destroy. The blame, what blame for? then, you see, destroy. You don't follow the self-chasing door. By following the self-chasing door, you have been suffering oceans of experience, oceans of some sort of suffering until now, from beginningless times until now. So, that the duty, self-chasing, following self-chasing door. Oh, then put all blends to that, eliminate that. Then come bodhicitta. Then there's enlightenment. Then you free numberless sentient being from oceans of samsara. Numberless sentient being freed him from oceans of samsara. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? I mean, easy to say the words, but can you imagine that? Wow, wow, wow. You're the one person. By bodhicitta. Wow, 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 wow. Then bring them to Sangye Kwang Buddhahood. Fearless happens. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, wow. So therefore, put the blame to one, to the self-changing thought, and to the others, kindness, only kindness. So the others most dear, most precious, most kind, and you are wishful and jewel. More than that, not just wishful and jewel, but as I said, more kinder than skies full of whiskey and jewel, like that. So, so you see, reality. This is the reality. Reality. But you see, though, even we tend to practice Dharma, recite mantras, prayers, but you know, we, including myself, we don't get practice this one. The real, the rich, most rich practice, bodhicitta and Losang, there's no fight. There's no to get angry at others. You know? There's nothing to get angry at others. So it's silly to get angry or killed. You know? Revenge. So, revenge, you don't know. You're killing the cause. You're killing the cause you're killing the cause to receive harm for many lifetimes. 100, 500, or 1,000 lifetimes. So, see, from one karma, harming others. So, don't know, don't think karma, don't think karma. Even one knows, but don't think. When one knows intellectually, but doesn't think. So when it comes to your life, and then you see, put the blame to others. put the blames, not real. Put the blame self-changing. Don't know that. Put the blame to others. You know. So maybe they meant your kindness to others. opposite. I'm not sure. So you see, it shows how ordinary beings in the world. So, including us, teachings we heard many times, we see, but don't practice. Myself, you know, but I'm not saying others. Myself. One problem comes on you, blame to others. Put all the blame to others. So that's what I practice the opposite. So because yeah, so this is the two verses. Wow, so important in the life. Best psychology, best meditation, best practice. Wow. Then you have no problem. You have no problem with others. So even the obstacle, even the obstacle what you have, you use for you use you make the you say you take the obstacle of sin. Because of that, you take the obstacles of sentient beings and experience for them, for the sentient beings, and them to achieve state of omniscient mind. You know, you use it to achieve enlightenment. Sport, you use your obstacles as to a sport. To sport, you are to achieve your enlightenment, Buddhahood, and the sentient beings, free from suffering, samsara, and achieve enlightenment. It's incredible. So you have no obstacle to practice Dharma.
Excellent. So, Rinpoche, I think, took great pains to explain what Lojong is and how Lojong can be used to overcome obstacles. And this is something else Rinpoche said, which I took out, how Lojong makes a mind so happy, how you can use your antidotes to overcome problems, to achieve happiness for oneself and others. Particularly, the last one, the last paragraph is so amazing, right? So because your mind is trained in bodhicitta, your mind is so happy that when you meet a problem, any problem, when people get angry with you, people get accusive, somebody accuses you, your mind is so happy. Quite difficult to do, but I think this is something, I think maybe something we should experiment with our minds to see whether it really does work or not. So if you can understand the source of our suffering as an intelligent person, we will always strive to overcome, right? So I think if it is something that we can overcome, or something, if you feel that something is a solution to our problems, then I think it could be something that which could be used by us, which could be experiment as such. So I'll play quickly the next video, which is the Rinpoche talking about self-cherishing as the root of anger, as it harms oneself. Go ahead.
Even all the time, not only somebody become bothered you, something the person does something you don't like, your self-cherishing thought, your attachment, don't like. You see, not we become crazy. We become crazy. One person did something your attachment doesn't like, your self-cherishing thought doesn't like. Then you become crazy. You get angry day and night. And, some people months and years. Some people years. Some people many, not 1 year, many years. Many years. Then some nuns get angry for years. So stable. So stable is the patience. But the anger, even after I heard about teachings from his own great lamas, so rare to find in the world, in the life. So difficult, so rare to me. Many lifetimes you don't meet, but billions, billions you don't meet. But maybe you receive all the power. Then you see, then what you stabilize the anger for years. How to accept patience. You know, that's all, you see. So here it says, Dukantaru Lana Rapshayan, all the transmigratory beings rise, everyone, all the transmigratory beings rise in enemy. You know, they all complain you. They all complain, they all get angry, complain, you know, the speech. You know. Even body, see, harm you, mind angry. Even all the transmigratory become enemy, rise enemy, and kind of rapture. So scold you, I mean, complain, whatever. Nan zhe lui dang ne mi zhe dang. So see with your nam zhe lui, so you are examining mind. You are intelligent mind. Examining the intelligent mind, examine, and on the basis of not getting angry, then because you gave harm, you receive harm, so in return, like the normal countries, normal people who never met Dharma, who doesn't know Dharma, so you see, like the animals, they see even small insects, or they like the mouse, you see, who he will give harm, they harm back, even the small insects, like that, see. So instead of harming back in return, so you benefit in return. Oh, do you understand? That's so important to understand what Buddha said. In return, you benefit. In the end of the Jaya practice, these following Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's footsteps when he was a Bodhisattva. Oh, there it says, especially, you see, you helped, and then in return, that sentient being gave harm to you. You benefit, and that sentient being gave harm to you. Oh, to that sentient being, then Buddha, generate even stronger compassion to that one. You understand? In the prayer, the following footsteps, Buddha there talks. Buddha, how he did this, whom he benefited and harm in return, all to them, especially greater compassion generated, and means is a benefit to that, you see. So whatever you can do, so that whatever you can do, you can help, you can do that, and I remember something, but I forgot. So you see, even prayer, at least even prayer, you pray, you dedicate the merit and you pray that person is to not be born lower realms. And you see, and then to actualize bodhicitta, you know, that you pray. Then to Jaya Kaswa, 3 pencil aspect part of doing enlightenment. Actualize them to achieve enlightenment quickest possible. So you pray whatever you can back. So that at least, even at least your prayer, whatever you can do. So to help like that. So after you finish Omane Pema Hung reciting, then you dedicate to merit, then that being, then to actualize bodhicitta. It comes Chandra's and Rinpoche. As I recite like that, and you think that, you remember that person. I think it makes strong prayer with all of that. However, to achieve enlightenment quickest possible. So that.
So we have heard Rinpoche talk of 3 teachings earlier, and basically what Rinpoche's message is that suffering and happiness are all created by the mind. So it is really worthwhile to spend some time developing our minds in love, compassion, gratitude, loving kindness, and eventually opening our wisdom eye to see clearly the universal reality, which is always there. It's not something that it is only because we train our mind we see it, but it's always there, just that because of our untrained mind we don't see it. And often, very often, Rinpoche's His Holiness Dalai Lama always says that if you want to be selfish, you should always be selfish wisely. And I thought this is quite a paradox, right? 2 things, but His Holiness always further says that so selfish, wise selfishness is actually cherishing others, because when you cherish others, every desire, everything that you want, you always find it. You always get what you want. But if you cherish yourself, you find nothing. You don't get anything. I think these are, things that we can think about. We can actually, wonder, and we can reflect, meditate to find out whether those things come true or not. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, a lot of it is true, and a lot of my experience, which I'll share later on, how it comes about, so to speak. But it is something for us to think. Our minds are wired differently. Our minds are all wired towards, I don't know whether, to a great extent, a lot of early scientists believe that the survival is the instinct that we all have, and survival instinct makes us grasp at everything, so to speak. But later, psychologists and positive psychologists, particularly, came out and said it's not survival which drives people. It's the drive. It's a pursuit of happiness, which makes everyone do all the things that they do, so to speak. So if happiness is our ultimate goal, then I think really common sense for intelligent people like us should be cherishing others, because if you cherish others, you always will find what you need for yourself. So I'll play one more video after this, and after this I'll spend some time talking to you. The next video is called Transforming Your Experience of Suffering into Happiness.
Then please write down this. I'm not going to much, blah, blah, blah. But it's very important, very important. So when you have problems, relationship or business problem or cancer or uncurable disease or whatever, you see, you must recite this, you must do this practice. By my experience, this, may all the sentient beings, become free from disease, spirit harm, the condition, spirit harm, then negative karma, cause of disease, negative karma, then defilements, achieving enlightenment. Oh, you just repeat this, like you start Om Mani Padme Hum, you know, the Maha Om Mani Padme. You see, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme. On the same, you see, you recite, by my experience, this disease, may all sentient be free from all the disease and spirit harm, negative karma, defilements, achieving enlightenment. Also, like I said, Om Mani Padme, you recite this. You know, sitting, walking, what you see, it's fantastic. Oh, then you are, whether you have cancer, curable, uncurable disease, whatever. You know, headache, knee pain, whatever. Wow, you are making useful, beneficial to every sentence bangs. Numberless helping, numberless antidotes, numberless answers, numberless images, numberless there's numberless universe, numberless images, numberless numberless absolute. Every sentence you are making useful, beneficial. You understand? Otherwise, I have a cancer, you know, then you can you torture yourself, I mean, you know, because of the mental torment, not only physical, but mental torment. You torture yourself, emotion, negative emotion. Oh, you see, worse, you make worse yourself. More, even you didn't cancer, then cause it to have cancer. There's people who are much worried or, you know, selfish-minded or cancer. People who have so much anger, that blood pressure, blood clot and die. Blood pressure, huh? Yeah, high blood pressure, blood clot, blood pressure. People who have much anger. The scientists they checked, they notice people have anger, much anger. They measure the number of heart attack there. You know, you understand? Write down. So, yeah, that's, I heard people, some number of years ago, they found out among the people betting, measure the number of heart attack, dying people dying there. That's it. So definitely, it's a peaceful mind, compassion, loving kindness, patience, tolerance, satisfaction. You understand? You have to learn this. You have to learn these things. Otherwise, you die with so much suffering. You live life with so much suffering. Negative emotion, so much suffering all the time. So that. Even you live longer, amnesia, so much suffering. So that is whether you believe reincarnation come or not. That's what able to be a good human being. That's what you practice. So here, with this practice, then you have no obstacle. You use all the obstacles, sickness, whatever problem you have, you use to achieve, you use in path to achieve enlightenment. Total cessation, obscuration, completion of reality. You use every problem, everything to achieve the path to enlightenment, Buddhahood. So everything becomes useful. The thing is what any problem, every problem you use to achieve Buddhahood for something. You must know this, right? Whatever problem, see, this is whatever problem you have, you use for sentient beings. You use for all the sentient beings to achieve enlightenment. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Wow, that is all. Is Tibetan mind, Buddhism, practice. This came from Buddha, from Nanda. You understand? So amazing, so incredible. Wow. So wise. You make your life. You see, even the problems you see, pastoring that, preaching that, all the thought transformation, benefits thought transformation. This. So it's called pure land. You say, I met a pure land I mentioned. So your body, whether your body is very tall, very short, whatever, by practicing Bodhicitta, so your body is called pure land. You see, every problem you use in the path for you to achieve enlightenment, and every problem you use for all the sentient beings, their happiness, you see. To achieve enlightenment, you use every problem that you have. You see, even sickness, whatever. So there's so much joy, so incredible happiness in the life. See, so this body, small body, is called pure land. And the teachings. This last one, this very great yogi, the great yogi, Chögyeko Sangpa, his advice, his practice, and he says his own practice, and he advice. So 3 times he must pass away. So many lies. So many lies on his body. That he voluntarily he didn't put away. He voluntarily keep the lies. So much lies on this body. 3 times. I must see passed away 3 times. So much lies. He keep it. Dedicated completely for the lies. 3 times. Oh, it happened. He practiced. Yeah, Chögyeko Sangpa. Yeah. His Dharma practice, how he bear hardships, for sentient beings, see? Practice Dharma for sentient beings.
He stopped when he takes a break.
To that. This many years, process, whatever we say, it's just between lips combating. You see? Yeah.
So Rinpoche spoke about Tonglen, and Tonglen is a practice that it's Tong, of course, Tonglen is Tibetan word. Tong means give and Leng means take, which is cultivating the practice of charity, cultivating the practice of giving, using one's breath. In the great bodhisattvas, bodhisattvas, highly realized beings who work for the benefit of other sentient beings, are people who have developed a very strong sense of giving, where if somebody asks them for their arm or their legs, they get so blissed out that they can give something. If they got nothing else to give, if somebody asks for their arms, they can give their arms, so to speak. But for us, lay people like us, we can't do that because we don't have those. We have not developed the sense of the ability to do that. So, but we can use our breath. We can use our breath to be, to actually to act as a form of giving and taking. So it's a practice where every one of us can practice, and it's could be a powerful daily practice, so to speak, where you can use your in-breath, so to speak, to take on the suffering of others, and to use your out-breath as giving your body, speech, and mind to others, so to speak. So it's like it's like for non-Buddhists, it's like a make-believe, it's like a visualization, but it is really a very, very powerful practice. And you can even use this practice not only for taking on the suffering of others, you can even use it to take on your suffering of your own pain, your own suffering. I know personally of a lot of people who have cured themselves of incurable diseases by using this practice of Tonglen, where, for example, I know a person who suffered from cancer of the nose, and he told me that, and he was a non-Buddhist, and he told me that when he heard about the practice of Tonglen, he was going for chemotherapy and everything else, and he was stage 4 and he was not expected to live very long. And he said that when he started the practice of Tonglen, just practicing this, breathing in his own cancer and suffering of others, so to speak, suffering of other people, suffering from cancer, and breathing out good health to others, to all sentient beings. That he's suffering, his cancer went into remission. And I think I met him like 10 years after his cancer was remission, and he says there's no more reoccurrence of his cancer, so to speak. So can you imagine such a powerful practice that you can cultivate yourself just by breathing, using your breath, so to speak. So I mean, there's a lot of in YouTube and other things, a lot of guidance of how you can practice Tonglen. So as our time is very short, I will not go into so much detail, but Tonglen is a very powerful practice. And in fact, Rinpoche says that, small quotation from Rinpoche, that Tonglen actually transforms kaka. Kaka is cool, right? So taking other suffering on ourselves, we experience problems like transforming kaka into gold. We cherish others. There's no space in our heart for negativity. We can be happy all the time. So the practice of Tonglen is really very, very, very powerful. It's an amazing practice, and you can take it if you can take upon the suffering of others. You can give whatever you want. I mean, if you're a person who have difficulty giving, I mean, you can start with giving with your breath. And I think that alone can be a huge, development for. So I think transforming problems and it's all up to us. It's up to us to be able to transform our own problems and our own suffering into something which is a form of giving to others, so to speak. Can you stop screen share? And problems sometimes can be our biggest, most greatest teachers, because our lives is really in our hands. And I would like to share with you that for many years, for me, the Dharma was a refuge where I could always go back, whenever I had serious problems, and and um, and running my own business and running my own companies, which I did for many years. I was just, I started I listed a company on the Indian Stock Exchange, and I was chairman of the company for many years, and I was the CEO of the company in Malaysia. So, juggling all these responsibilities, and especially when you are the CEO or the chairman of a company, really the buck stops with you. And sometimes the bucks are very heavy bucks, heavy problems, heavy issues. And I always found somehow a refuge, and my place of refuge and always has been Kopan. And whenever I have really serious problems, I always go to Kopan and take a break for a couple of days, and it always recharged me and gave me so much energy to come back to problems. And my Dharma father was the late Rinpoche Lama Zopa, who I used to reach out for every whenever I had issues. I always, I mean, he was like a father to, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 monks, but he also my Dharma father, so to speak. And I remember one time going to see him when I had a serious problem in one of the things I was doing, and it was absorbing. It was almost like insurmountable. And I went to see Lama Nundrup in Kopan, and I was telling him the problems I had. And Lama Nundrup would say, nice, you always say, don't worry, things will always be fine. Or people who knew Lama Nundrup, he, just being in his presence was always like, so comforting, so to speak. And one time I went to see him, and it's early, I think maybe about 20 years ago. And he gave me, he said, all things will be fine, and just gave me an extract from the Precious Garland, which was this three verses, verse 495 to 497. And he said, recite this every night before you sleep. And that things to be okay. Recite this every night before you sleep. These are the 4 verses that he gave me, which were Arya Nagarjuna. 3 verses that he gave to me, which were Arya Nagarjuna. And I took this back, and I did recite it for every time I went to bed. But I always wondered, how does this help me, to overcome all my problems? And would you believe it? Nearly maybe 20 years after I received this, when I was preparing for this talk, I realized that Rinpoche was actually asking me to train my mind. It was, I just realized 2 days ago when I was preparing my slides for this talk, and I said, hey, this is actually what he gave me 20 years ago. If I had really practiced this, if I really practiced being well-disciplined, contained, generous, brilliantly attentive, peaceful mind, not excitable, not deceitful, not procrastinating, not steadfast. If I really cultivated to be like a certain, like the moon, and that is full and radiant like the sun in autumn, or deep like the ocean, or firm like Mount Meru, I would have been freed of all defects. I would have been, full of virtue. I would have been sustenance of all sentient beings. I could have been omniscient. I was laughing at myself, and I laughed at myself. I was telling my wife the other day, and I said, this is so funny that I see this after I finally understand something after 20 years. So, it just tells you that you never give up on the Dharma, or forget the Dharma, or, never give up on the advice that your gurus give you all the time. And this particularly came back to me, resonated with me in 2019 and 2020. Stop screenshot. 2019, 2020. As you know, we had the pandemic in 2020, so to speak. But already before the pandemic, I had serious issues in many of the things I was doing. I had a project that was given to me, and I was really struggling with that project. And a lot of problems in the office, and problems that all over the place. And then the pandemic hit, and as you all know, in Malaysia we had like multiple 3 months of lockdowns where we couldn't even go out of our houses, and at that time I also was feeling very lethargic and very unwell. So I used to see a naturopath doctor, and I went to see this doctor, and I said I was feeling lethargic, I was feeling listless, I was feeling tired, I was feeling stressed, and she prescribed me certain medication. And one of the medication she actually prescribed me was a medication called Cortex Plus, and she gave me a very high dosage of Cortex Plus, almost 600 milligrams a day. And I mean, trusting doctors for what they give you, I took them, and I remember gradually my problems got worse. I started suffering from anxiety. I started suffering from nervousness. I started suffering from everything. I started suffering from panic attacks. I couldn't drink coffee. When I drank coffee, my hands would shake. My hands will tremble. I remember one time I was doing a Tara Puja with my wife, and I was drinking tea. And suddenly I felt I was going to have a heart attack, and I had to rush to the hospital. When they did the ECG, and then she actually looks fine, but I don't know why you're feeling this way. And I didn't know why I was feeling this way. And I just thought I was going out of my mind. I just thought I was going crazy. I was going, just mentally out of my mind. So, I couldn't find the reason why I was having all these attacks. I was having heart palpitations. And I remember one time I went to Singapore on a business trip, and I was hosted to lunch by my Singapore business partners, and at the end of lunch, I just felt panic. I just felt I needed to get back on a plane and get back to Kuala Lumpur. And I said, this is something not right. I didn't understand what it was. And at the time, I also had become a vegan. I had gone on a vegan diet. So I remember contacting Geshe Lama, Geshe Tenzin Zopa in Australia, and I said, Geshe Lama, I'm having all these problems. And he asked me, what have you done to yourself? I said, well, I've done nothing. I've been vegan for a while. I said, well, maybe it's a vegan diet, because vegan diets sometimes tend to upset your winds, wind energies. And he said, maybe you should go back to drinking bone broth, So I said, well, vegan to bone broth, I mean, it's like from, being a vegetarian to a cannibal, So he said, no, you have to do something to help yourself. So I tried bone broth, and didn't help very much. So it so happened, I was given this medication in February of 2020. And it so happened, I did a blood test, but normally doctors don't give you this until they do a blood test to see what your level of cortisol is. And for people who don't know what cortisol does, cortisol is actually produced by your adrenal gland. It is a fight or flight hormone. It's a hormone which makes you active, which, for people who are low hormone level, low cortisol level, cortisol is recommended. But my blood test had come back with a high cortisol, and the doctor, not seeing that, prescribed me with this very heavy dosage of cortisol. And it's not until May when my wife went for the hormone test, and when the doctor was reviewing my wife's hormone results, and she said, your hormones, your cortisol is like at 110. You don't need to take cortisol at all. And I looked at her, I said, look, hey, my cortisol was 125, and you gave me this 600 milligrams of cortisol every day. And she said, oh, well, then don't take cortisol anymore. Stop it. That's all she said. I said, I freaked out. I said, oh my God. But I still did not figure out that the cortisol was the cause of this. But what really saved me was not medication. What really saved me was this book. I don't think you can see it. I can't see it. Can you all see it? I don't know if you can see it enough. It's Rinpoche's book, How to Transform Problems into Happiness. And this book was my lifesaver. It's actually a teaching of Rinpoche. It's a commentary of Rinpoche on Dragpa's Rinpoche's teaching on transforming transforming instructions on turning happiness and suffering to path of enlightenment. And it was a lifesaver because reading the book, I think I read the book from, I think every single word probably I had underlined. And if I can play for you the screen where the teachings are, can be seen, and it approaches the approach to problems from a relative point of view and absolute point of view. And from a relative point of view, it goes to go to the instructions on turning happiness, and instructions on turning happiness. Yeah, excellent. This one, yes. So it's instructions on turning happiness and suffering to the path of enlightenment. It was based on Dr. Rinpoche's commentary on Rinpoche's teaching. So we can approach in two ways. So one is the first way, of course, is the way of the relative suffering, relative existence. How you can reject the mind, exclusively desiring not to have suffering. And it talks about the uselessness of considering suffering as something unfavorable. This teaching was based on the teaching of Shantideva's Bodhisattva and the Precious Garland, where Shantideva says, if something can be overcome, why worry about it? Something cannot be overcome. Why, what's the point of worrying? And this is the first one. And the second one, of course, was if you do not allow suffering to bother you so much, then you have the presence of mind to be able to overcome suffering. And this was something that I used very much. And then the next one is the how to develop the attitude of being happy when suffering arises. This really, really resonated with me. How suffering is a part of training in the emergence of samsara, when you realize the truths, the truth of suffering, that suffering is to be known, and how when you know suffering, then you have this need to understand how to help people who are in suffering, and to take on this attitude of suffering, and how suffering then can also be a support for taking refuge, because refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And how suffering can be a training for overcoming one's pride, because pride is a delusion, and how suffering can be a support for purification of unvirtuous deeds, and how suffering can be a support for attraction to virtue, and how suffering can be a support for training in compassion, especially for compassion for people who also are suffering like you, and how suffering really can be, arise for meditation on holding others more dear than oneself. And if I had not come across this teaching and this book of Rinpoche's of transforming problems into happiness, I would have been completely lost. I would have gone out of my mind. But and I came out of suffering. I came out of by reading this book over and over again and practicing all the things which were being taught by in this teaching, was how I overcame my overdose of cortisol, so to speak, overdose of anxiety, overdose of everything. It calmed me down. It helped me to see to see things in a clear perspective, that that suffering. So how suffering is basically the basically what makes you see what how the suffering of others. When you experience suffering yourself and you realize then how suffering others, how you can elevate them. And I think this was for me the pivotal point of why I then decided to do the basic program, which I'm doing now, which and every day when I come across Dharma, and makes my hair stand sometimes when I see things, being, taught, or how to help people from suffering. So having an overdose of cortisol helped me see all this. And sometimes, I think some people, suffering can be so heavy that they're not able to see the way out, so to speak. And I then realized how Dharma is a nectar really for us to be able to transform our problems into happiness, our suffering into happiness, so to speak. So, and also the other two works of important works which helped with this was also the 8 verses of thought transformation, Karapakeshi, Langatampa. And especially, this is my daily practice. And I mean, we are short of time, so I will not go too deeply into this. But these 8 verses, I mean, are for me a lifesaver. They save my mind. They save my sanity, so to speak. And if you dwell really deeply to them, you can really see that really, when you transform your mind, you transform your world, and you transform all the suffering. And it's really in our minds that all our samsara and nirvana really are. And we really don't have time to go into this, but if I have time, I will really be happy to share this with people. And I do sometimes talk to my friends and whenever I have the opportunity to share my experience on the 8 verses. And of course, the second training, of course, is the 7 mind training by Karapake Jawa. So, and which is also very much related to it. But I think the 8 verses is for me, something which resonates really, really well. So it is, as Arya Sanjadeva says, it's not possible to control all external events, but simply control the mind. What needs is there to control other things. So this brings to mind something that when you read about the historical figures, I'm reminded of the events of, for example, historical figures like Nelson Mandela, for example. When he spent, I think, 18 years in hard labor, and I think altogether 27 years in prison. But and this quotation from what he said, about how he was able to overcome his hatred and his anger, simply by transforming his mind. And because no matter what they did, they could not take his mind away. And this is one of the things that by being able to control his mind, he was able to overcome all the things he had, and by developing his mind, by developing his compassion for others, he was able to come out of it and become a leader of South Africa when he did. And of course, another teaching was how when I read Shwana's book of joy, about this monk called, I think, I can't remember his name now, who was Tapola, I think, who was sentenced to hard labor, 18 years of hard labor, and he was in prison for 18 years, and he was not allowed. And all the time he was being tortured, and tortured, and how he survived the torture, basically because he had compassion. He developed compassion for his guards, and out of 130 people, only 20 people survived, and he had compassion. He developed compassion for his guards more than anything else, and and that helped him to overcome his anger and his compassion, and compassion for others. And our own Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he was in hospital after his stroke, what you had in Australia. I would like to play for you a short video.
About the
Daughter or doctor?
daughter, the girl who is daughter, and the man daughter are given or the child. Others they don't know.
What are they going to do with it?
No good to know what else we're doing. And also good that it is good recovery then have also that within the more things to methods for recovery.
How are we going to prove it?
We
It falls through the hole in that tooth.
I thought I didn't know what they were doing. And Madame things what to do, not sure.
Yeah, I know.
So
I don't know what I'm doing.
he said, for diabetes, there's something other than doing it, then you do it.
So this was Rinpoche after a few days after his stroke, and the doctors had asked him, what was he eating, and Rinpoche said, whether he could tell them whether he was eating mixima, So, and Rinpoche's speech is still slurred, and and yet, he has no panic, no fear. This is a person who just had a stroke, and there he was, laughing and joking, and this is for me, wow, this is our guru, and it's a clear and expression of somebody who's transformed his mind. This is, so this is amazing. And this is Rinpoche. Whatever Rinpoche does is always a kind of an indication, an example for all of us to follow. And if we could have a stroke and have that mental attitude, I think we would all be having strokes every day and not worry about it. But and for him to remain so fearless and calm and peaceful, this is really a bodhisattva. So so next. And there was a quotation from Shantideva that I thought was very apt, which said, "Where would I find enough leather to cover the whole surface of the earth? But with leather soles beneath my feet," he says, "as if the whole world has been covered." So, and I think basically the take-home message is, sometimes our adversities basically makes us into, seek our realization, because without the mud there is no lotus, because without adversity, sometimes we need adversities, but sometimes we get overwhelmed by adversities. But I think what I'm trying to say is that sometimes adversities are the things that sometimes we need to develop the lotus in our hearts, the lotus in our minds, and and they actually can be can be our ground for us to grow our bodhicitta, to grow our wisdom, to grow our causes for our liberation. So I think, benefits of mind training, basically it's from Jatakamala, from Buddha, that learning is a gloom dispelling lamp, the best of riches that no thief can take away, and the best of arms that lays below, and the best of friends, the best of unchanging in the face of adversity and poverty and negativity, and the best of treasures. It's like sunlight scattering the dark. So we can train our minds. We can train our minds to achieve, happiness, all the happiness you want, of happiness in the higher happiness of the higher rebirth in small scope, happiness rebirth in medium scope, and happiness and enlightenment in the great scope. And these are the three things that, these three scopes that always will bring us everlasting happiness and success. And Lama Yeshe, now the founder, co-founder of FPMT together, said that whatever good news, bad news, heaven, earth, is a manifestation of our minds. The whole world might rise up against us, but the ability to grow through our mind is well developed. Because to view everyone's our friend rather than cover with fear and hatred. Solving problems by gaining control of our minds is not the most effective way to deal with difficulties. It's easily, the easiest and the most harmless. So really, mind training is what we need. Mind training is what we need to do in order to develop our minds, in order to achieve all the things we want to achieve for ourselves in this. So I'm more or less at the end of my presentation, and I wanted to leave some time for question and answers, or if there are any question and answers at all. So before I go to that, I would like to suggest some recommended reading, which are some of the books that helped me in my time of darkness, my time of my problems, especially the book Transforming Problems into Happiness, which I thought was a lifesaver for me um, from something which I was self-inflicted, yes, but for some people it was allowed me to see into what's called the depth of darkness, the depth of darkness of people. I think of all the illnesses in the world, I think mental illness is probably the most difficult, most challenging, because your core base reference point is sometimes gets shifted, and when that shifts, sometimes you don't know what's reality and what's not reality. But if you had faith in the Dharma, if you had faith, I think, I mean, for me, I think the overdose of cortisol was like an inducement of suffering. But some people suffer that every day. Some people go through that. This is their reality, and to help them, I think you need to go back to the transforming problems, how to transform problems. And if you have that base, can you go back to the previous one? If you had that base of being able to have that knowledge that all the problems are manifestations of the mind, and if you have that all the time, that you know that you're able to overcome all the suffering. You're able to overcome all the, or at least see suffering for what it is. The Lumbering Yearbook, it's really a miracle, because every day it's one of my first things I read in the morning for the day. And I think this book compiled by Alison Murdoch is really a fantastic gift. I've given it as gifts to all my friends, whoever I could. I got so many copies from Hap Ching in Singapore, and I gave them away to all my friends. So I told them to read it every day as a Bible, and as a Bible. So, and I think it is really a very useful instrument, because it helps to see everything on a daily basis, and kind of a life. It's like kind of a daily life giver. So, of course, other books, Door Satisfaction, Patience, and next. The Book of Joy is another fantastic book of His Holiness with Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and kind of on two faiths, Christianity and Buddhism. How the recommendations. I think the eight things they teach you how to use your on a daily basis. That really can help train the mind. Of course, Nectar of Manjushri Speech is a commentary of the Bodhicitta by Shantideva. Mind Training by Thupten Jinpa is a collection of all the mind training texts of Tibetan Buddhism, and I think it's also a great book to read. Ever Flowing Nectar of Bodhicitta, again by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I've come to the end of my presentation, more or less, and I invite questions. If there are any questions from the floor or from anybody whatsoever, I'll be very happy to answer them. How do we go about it? So you can put the questions up. I'll be very happy to answer them if there are any questions on the share screen. How to do this? Chats.
People can either unmute themselves and ask you the
Yeah.
question, Jaya, or they can put it into the chat box.
Okay.
Either way is fine.
Okay. Is
You can hear
somebody
me now,
able to?
yeah?
Are there anyone able to see a chat box? I can't see the chat box where.
Oh, I can read them out. I can read it out.
Okay. So if there are any questions from anyone whatsoever, I'll be very happy to answer them, because in some of the other presentations on this series, I think there was so much volume of presentations that there was no time for question and answer. So I really wanted to make some time to be able to answer some questions, and if there are some or comments, if anyone has comments even to make, I'm open. I'm ready.
Maybe I can start, Jaya,
Yeah.
if you can hear me. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm okay now, right? I'm not so soft like the beginning. Someone told me I was very soft in the
Yes.
beginning.
Yes. That's much better now. Yes.
I see. Okay, I've turned my volume on full blast. So I just wanted to find out from you, Jai, because you've been in so many situations in your work as a CEO and so on. I mean, mind training is one thing. It trains you how to look at situations in a more positive light. But have there been any instances where you just had to walk away because otherwise going deeper into it, mind training or not, would have been harmful both to yourself and to the other party?
Yes. I think I have some people from my office probably listening into this presentation. And I think over the years, I've actually evolved from the person that I was many years ago to the person I am now. That actually mind training has actually helped me to or Dharma has actually helped me to stay calm and to stay collected and to view everything from the viewpoint of Dharma, so to speak. For example, I mean, previously, uh, I had for example, in 2019 and 2020, I think I had a very serious situation in the office where I had some staff who walked away and who made all kinds of accusations that I was doing something to them, which I wasn't. And ordinarily, I would have reacted with anger and you know and anger and hatred and maybe why me and why this and all that kind of stuff. But when this happened to me this time, and it was quite serious allegations, and I kind of looked at it and said, hey, this is exactly what all my training, all this dharma I've been going through all these years, it's exactly what's prepared me for this. And I forgave them straight away. And we had to go to court in the civil courts to dismiss some of the allegations, so to speak. And I'm happy to say we won all the cases, and we won costs as well. So my solicitor told me that we should press charges against this guys and get them to pay. And I told myself, what would that do? I mean, I think it was for me a lesson, for me a teaching. This whole thing was a teaching, and I forgave them, and forgiving them made me feel so good. Forgiving them making me so good, and make me, and it made, I think, it helped me grow. It helped me, applying this, that nothing happens for no reason. Everything happens for a reason, so to speak. And practicing compassion, practicing bodhicitta. Sometimes you need to be given opportunity to do so. And sometimes when you practice dharma, I think you find opportunities coming your way. Really coming your way, and you have to be prepared for that. I think this is what it is. So I think I am not that I have become a Superman, and not that I've become immune to emotions, or not that I've become immune to suffering. But I think when I now face suffering, I face suffering with forbearance. I face suffering with a thought that there's nothing that can overwhelm me unless I let something overwhelm me, so to speak. And I feel I become stronger, much more resilient, much more calmer. And I think, so I think sometimes we go through suffering. One, of course, is karmic entitlement of suffering, but sometimes also suffering makes us stronger. I read the Dhammakaya Sutra every day, and I think Dhammakaya Sutra tells you, suffering. Okay, sorry, I'm going too much but I think suffering is sometimes quite a good thing if you know how it actually purifies you and helps you to negate all the karmas of the past. So I look upon it, and when I come across suffering, and I say, okay, wow, okay, something else for me to is like this, check, tick off your list of things you need to go through. Like, okay, I go through it, and I think it only is suffering if you allow your mind to suffer. If you look upon it, if you look upon suffering and say, hey, this is an experience I have, like crossing the road, and then you say, okay, I've crossed a road, now it's another road for me to cross, or another river for me to swim across, or another trench for me to jump over. So I look upon it as that, and I say, when suffering comes, okay, it comes. It's part of purification, and I say, okay, I just move on, and that helps me to be sane. I help my
Yeah.
sanity aspect. So,
Yeah. In other words, I think it's as you experience it, you also stop the cycle from perpetuating, isn't it?
perpetuating,
If you were to continue with lawsuits and what have you, then the cycle continues and it just brings on more suffering.
correct. And the experience I had in 2001, especially with my overdose of cortisol, and overdose of cortisol, and all these issues. At the time we had the pandemic, we had the lockdowns, we had all those issues. You don't know whether you went out and you came back, whether you're going to survive. You don't know whether there was a vaccine available. And we had all that things at the same time. I had this overdose of cortisol. Sometimes I would get up and I'd be afraid to get out of bed. So, but I thought, now when I reflect all upon it, I say, hey, there was something I really wanted. I really needed it. I really needed it because it made me open my eyes so much more clearer to Dharma, so much so I now understand. I then understood, being a Buddhist for 20 over years, I never understood when they said that Dharma is nectar, but only after those experiences, I then understood, wait, Dharma is really nectar. It is, wow, so much so that now when I decided to go into the basic program, I said, wow, this is exactly what I needed, exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I needed to hear, So it was, for me, a watershed moment in my life.
Mm. Okay, so there's a question
Yeah.
in the chat box.
Yeah,
from-
I can talk,
go
Selina,
ahead,
it's my question.
Okay.
Jaya, thanks for
Right,
sharing
that's
that
it.
about your practice on 8 verses. And Rinpoche always encourage everyone to memorize and do, but I never got the chance to do. I want you to share your experience when you do it as daily practice. Do you do it like you just read all the 8 verses, or you take a verse at a time, or when you encounter things that related to one of the verse, then you just reflect on it? How do you do it as a daily practice?
Okay, 8 verses for me is it's really a mind training. Of course, it's a mind training text. It's a Losang text, and I sometimes share my experience of the 8 verses with my friends. I also co-sponsor a center called Hope, where we do pranic healing and other things. So sometimes I share my experiences of the 8 verses with them. And if you can you go with the 8 verses? So if you go to the 8 verses, I think every single one of them, I reflect on them on a daily basis because it's part of my daily meditation practice. And every single verse resonates. It's like nectar. It's like you know, it's like yeah, it's like I mean, every one of them is like awesome uh, teaching of the Buddha. I mean, and so I reflect on them one by one, but I sometimes spend my time on one of that, and two of that exactly, and two of that are the verse number 5 and sorry, verse number uh, 5. Verse number 6 and 7. When someone I've benefited, on whom my great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard the person as my holy guru. For me, this verse resonates so deeply with me because the people who have given me the most problems in my life have always been my employees. Unfortunately, the employees, who have always gone out and, I mean, I think in my industry, my employees make up maybe 50% of my competition because they go out and they set up their own companies and they start stealing business from you, or they start, bad mouthing you, or they start complaining about you, or they cut, and I always, I always felt, why, people who you have benefited so much and you have helped them grow, and why do they do this to you? I never understood this, and I always never understood how they can be my gurus. Then I realized that the person who gives you the most harm is the person who helps you to grow the most, because then you go deep inside yourself and you find your inner strength and you find that capacity to grow, and that can only be given by somebody who does harm to you. I mean, it's like it's kind of funny, but and that always made me. I mean, every time, sometimes when I see this verse and I see this benefit, it almost makes me tear, because and then you realize how precious your enemy is, how precious, because if not for your enemy, you will never grow. You will never. Is your enemy is like this heat which makes you into a diamond. So much so that it is how precious enemies really are. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm almost curing myself talking about that, but it really is. And you understand then the compassion that you need to feel for your enemies. That that the suffering that they will need to go through for all the things they do to you, and then that's how I feel the compassion rising up in me all the time. And this particular verse 6, really, I find it very, very moving and very, very, very deep. It moves me very deeply. Now, of course, the next one is, taking directly happiness of others or the suffering of others onto yourself. And it's, of course, the practice of Ling and taking upon a suffering. I find this very liberating. And I find this particularly when I'm going for, even for example, I'm going for very difficult meetings or difficult situations where I need to be difficult as such. I sometimes breathe in the suffering of that meeting ahead of the meeting, so to speak, and that helps me. That helps me understand also how much of self-cherishing and self-grasping I really have. Because if I wasn't having that much of self-cherishing, self-grasping, I wouldn't be feeling that the suffering at all. And because suffering is relative, you only suffer when you allow yourself, and the suffering affects your ego. Suffering affects your cherishing of yourself. And sometimes I take upon the suffering of an encounter, of a difficult meeting or a difficult situation or a difficult life situation, and I find these two verses so powerful, verse 6 and verse 7. I mean, for me they were literally lifesavers of myself in this present life, of my past life. Past life as being this person that was so attached to things and so misguided and so, lost and so, living in samsara, so to speak. And that's fine. Just two verses, so liberating. I felt every time I go through it. And this is why I always spend some time on verse 6 and verse 7. Verse 7, I used it to practice my Tongling every day. And verse 6 is to, to cherish all my enemies. Because without my enemies, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have had any realizations. And I feel so sometimes what I feel from enemies is so, that they have to suffer, for me to grow, so to speak. So that is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jaya.
Thank you, Jaya. Any other questions?
Any other questions? The box. Is there any questions in the box, chat box?
No, chat box is quiet.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
we can.
So we are for once ahead of time.
Well, it's okay because I have some announcements at the end as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we can go to dedications. Dedications. Okay, so may I just read the dedication out loud. May I be a savior for those who lack a savior, a guide for all beings to enter a road, a boat, a ship, a bridge for those who want to cross the water. May I be an island for those who seek the safe shore of an island, a light for those who want a light, bedding for those who wish for bedding, and for all beings who desire a servant. May I become a servant of them all. May I be a wish-granting jewel and a wish-fulfilling vase, giving rise to whatever is desired, such as food and clothing. Powerful mantra, accomplishing the actions of pacification, increase, and so forth. Great medicine, curing every sickness. A wish-fulfilling tree, satisfying every need, and wish-granting cow for all beings. May I be like the four great elements, the earth and so forth, and like the sky, may always be a means of living in every way for the innumerable sentient beings. Likewise, may be a means of living at all times in all ways for the realms of sentient beings, equaling the external space until they all attain the soulless state. And as long as space remains, as long as transmigrating beings remain, until then may to remain to dispel the suffering of transmigrating beings. The long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You uphold subdues moral way, who serves the boundary bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majinath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, three sublime ones. Savior myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Before I hand over to Selina, I just want to say a very big thank you for Selina to suggest this topic for me, which was a topic, as you can see, very close to my heart. And I would like to also thank my new secretary, Rose, who just joined me 2 weeks ago, and she struggled very hard because she was a complete foreign to her. She was preparing the slides, and I think she struggled, and she became sick. She had she had a viral flu and everything else. So I think it was a purification for her as well. And of course, to my darling wife, who helped me to polish up this presentation. And to you, Selina, very much. Thank you very much for giving this topic. It was like for me, Catholic, it was for me to also relive what I went through with my maybe I would say purification of the samsara, and not samsara, purification of the pandemic, which helped me to as you can see, I'm in some dark places in my mind, and Dharma helped me to see, clearly and to come out of it. And I think, thank you for helping to relive that, Selina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaya. Yeah, I think it's very special that we all have this opportunity to come together, you know, on a Sunday morning or night or whatever time it is for everyone, that we come to know each other, we share experiences, and also for showing all the videos of Rinpoche, a wonderful reminder of, you know, the way out of samsara, the way out of suffering, and the harm of self-cherishing. There will be just one more class to go in English for this short course, and that's going to happen on the 17th of July. Venerable Gyalmo, you know, I think maybe no need to share first, because I don't know what I'm looking at also. So Venerable Gyalmo will be teaching on bodhicitta mindfulness. That will be our final class for English. But in 2 weeks' time, if you are bilingual, if you speak Chinese, then Maida will be also talking about mind training. Yeah, that's the Chinese parallel series. In the meantime, a reminder for everyone to continue to recite the Taking Refuge and Bodhicitta prayers for our Holy Guru Lama Zopa Rinpoche, as recently advised by Kandola, in order for his health to remain stable, for his life to be long. And also, next slide. Fantastic, very, very super exciting news. Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche himself will be teaching us live to conclude our short course. That will be, as you can see, on the 7th of August, 5 to 7 p.m. Malaysia, Singapore time. And so the registration link we will be opening, this is, of course, is going to be open to all, but we will need registration because we need to make the appropriate arrangements. So we'll be publicizing the link at the next class and so forth and henceforth. So please join us for the last class and of course for Rinpoche's talk. Finally, there are the contact details if any of us want to, if any of you want to contact us. Yep, here we go. Either on Facebook or by email. If you have any questions or queries, you're most welcome to get in touch. And I think that's it for myself as well. Happy weekend. Can stop screen share, Zion. Thank you so much to everyone for joining in.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday morning. I'm sure you have a lot of things to do, but I really appreciate that you did. And I hope there was some take home something somewhere. Thank you. You allowing me to speak my mind and share my experiences. Take care.
Okay.